How long have I been up here? So as usual, before we get to do anything meaningful, thank you all for coming. Looks like nearly everybody's here, which is good. And I noticed no applause to start with. You decided to wait and be judgmental this time. Is that, is that the thing? I mean, that's one of the few things that differentiates this job from most other crappy jobs is you show up and people applaud. That doesn't usually happen in your dental office or your car repair shop or so. Let's see. You have notebooks, which have most of the things I am going to flip up on the screen. If I throw something up there on the screen as we go, you will know it is not in your notebook if you're following along and it's not there, and or it doesn't have a page number. But we'll get back to where you are after the detour. Some of the things I have a lot to say about. Some of the things in there I have almost nothing to say about. Some of the things, depending on how I and the clock work, we may wind up skipping over, but I wanted to at least give you as complete a picture of all of this as I could, even if we vary the amount of time greatly we spend on one thing or another. If you wish to follow along, obviously you can. I do want to mention, because many of you, how many of you, if it's not your full-time gig or your main business, but one way or another, you run seminars or you run coaching programs or you raise your hands? By the way, whenever I do this, you learn more by looking around at them than at looking at me. See, you already know I do this. The potentially interesting thing is how many people in the room do. So you guys will, if nobody else appreciates, you will appreciate this. So I wanted to commend very good behavior, which is less and less available here in the United States. So almost every early registrant who could turned in a thoughtfully completed questionnaire, which is helpful. And whether you remember or not, we will be doing a drawing and giving away something cool for the people who did that. We had only one late cancellation, and that was for real health reasons. Not as severe as I think they should be, but I mean, it was a good story, but only one, We had, everybody was paid in full before they got here. Not a single lost credit card, bad check, note from mother, please let me in the room and I'll take care of this a month from now. Not one, right, which I think is remarkable. So I did want to commend you, and I would ask you now not to foul this up during the next 3 days. It's such a good start. It would be a shame to have it disintegrate into things that annoy me or annoy Vicki or, make us all unhappy. So some quick rules for a happy place. You haven't heard me say this, only in the past year, unfortunately. No screenshots, all right? You got it in your damn notebook. You do not need to be taking pictures of it with your phone. Right? So no holding the phone up and taking pictures while I'm talking. Don't do it to Cobain either, okay? Because you won't have his stuff in your notebook, but please, leave the phones at least on the table. No recording. By the way, people are doing this all the time in case you have not experienced this. It's just charming. Pete Lillo and I were at the Playhouse the other night for Bill O'Reilly and Dennis Miller. And the show was great, by the way. But amongst many annoying things, the guy right in front of me, I mean, he's got to be right in front of me. There's at least 3,000 people there, and I got to get this guy, right? He's big, first of all, and he is determined to photograph and videotape this entire performance. You know, so right in my line of vision is the back of his stinking phone. They actually came over and asked him, because it's lighting, you know, there's a glare, and so they actually came, and of course he put it away for 10 minutes, and then he's right back at it. They should, of course, have confiscated it, is what they should have done. And I, for some reason, chose not to, you know, create a scene. So no recording. If we catch you recording, we got to throw you out. Fast breaks. If you guys are late coming back from breaks, I just have to skip something. So if you don't want me skipping stuff, I can't tell the women how to handle this. But guys, you know, be unzipping on the way in the door. You don't need to, you know, you don't need to be the person at Starbucks who, after you're behind them for 45 minutes and they get up there, they don't know what they want, okay? We all know what we're going to do. So be in progress as you get to the trough, okay? Your cell phone ought not be your master, okay? You really ought not need to be checking up on things on every break and be out of the hallway conversations, which can be extremely valuable. I mean, I said to Ben Glass this morning, I said, you know, because last night's dinner was great and everybody got value from each other. And I said, you know, this is a smart group. I could just say, talk amongst yourselves and I'll see you Saturday afternoon. And everybody would, but you can't sell it, which is what rules it out. But, you know, better you should be engaged with people who are here, exhibitors, other attendees, than updating your Match.com profile or your Facebook thing or, you know, whatever, all of the myriad of things that you now do on your device. I will be able to go 3 whole days without checking mine once. So you ought to be able to manage the same amazing, magical feat. Also, I will go long periods of time without needing to excuse myself and leave the room to go pee. So you should be able to manage that feat too. Weak bladders are a sign of low IQ. So everybody will know if you are having to leave at non-break times, we know exactly what we're dealing with. All right? And it can cost you money. So if you need to drink less, you know, drink less. Room temperature. I will keep it as cold as is humanly possible. Okay? So if you are cold, find something to put on. Okay? In your room, there are blankets. Feel free to wrap yourself like a little papoose and come down here and cuddle if you wish. If you bid high enough on the blankets that are out there tied to other benefits for the charity auction, we'll release one early. And you can cuddle in that. If somehow, like me, you are hot, feel free to take stuff off, okay? And someone else will put it on, because there will be cold people. So don't be running around trying to screw with the thermostats. Okay? Somebody will break your fingers. This group, I hardly need to mention it, but try not to waste time and energy being offended, because it's not profitable. Many of you will be at one point or another. I tend not to edit myself in these anywhere near the extent to which I edit myself elsewhere. And as I get tired, I edit myself even less. So there's just, yeah, I tell this story. So we had at one year super conference, we had Kathy Ireland. I don't know how many of you were there for Kathy. And at another year's super conference, we had Joan Rivers. And there's a member who I will not name, but he comes to me at super conference, and it's always preceded with some praise, and then there's a but, But I have a real concern I think you should know about. And he proceeds to complain that Kathy was too Christian, and Joan said, fuck. And I said, here's what I want you to do. Go have a cup of coffee, stand over there in the corner, decide which of these two things you wish to lodge a complaint about, but you do not get to lodge a complaint about both, right? You either have to be more offended by Scripture being quoted or more offended by Joan, but you don't get both of them. It's not a fair twofer. So try not to waste time and energy being offended. Just shrug it off and get the profitable stuff that you can get. Food. This is Survivor. This is not Sandals Resort. Okay? So food here is for the purpose of you not dying by the third day. That's its purpose. And it has no other purpose. I understand now in Silicon Valley, people are just drinking some soylent muck. Has anybody read about this? Oh, it's that there's like 3 companies that are providing them with, so they don't have to leave their desk with a meal replacement. And there's some story about it being Soylent Green coming from other ground-up tech workers who have, not managed to catch the Google bus 3 days in a row, and so they become food for the others. There's some story to this. It was on CNBC, but anyway. So I mean, at least we're not just giving you a little canister of green gunk from the free trial members who drop out at the first credit card charge in order to sustain you. But it ain't the resort, so just find something to eat and eat it, and move on. Complaint department pretty much is closed. I'm really not interested. Vicky's really not interested. Sorry, but we just really, if it's a hotel thing, which I'm sure there are, go to the hotel, swap rooms. Somebody likes a noisy air conditioner. Somebody likes a thermostat that doesn't work. Just figure it out amongst yourselves, but we don't want to hear, we don't care. We really don't. Okay? As I said, 100% of the money has been collected. So the complaint department's closed, It's why you rarely, in 40 years, I've done it 3 or 4 times in the seminar business where we've extended payments past the seminar. I always think it's a really bad idea because it changes now how you have to be concerned about these people during the course of the seminar, So forget about that. There won't be much done from the stage in the way of resources or opportunities. There will be a few things mentioned along the way. You would be really dumb to be offended by that. As you know, we have, and I will reference them, we have sponsors and exhibitors without whom you have a page in your manual. It's page 3 as a reference point. We would not probably even be doing them. There's these kind of events. Their support is important. Most of them go to a great deal of trouble to bring new ideas, new stuff from year to year. Our master sponsor this year, Jack Dix and Nick Nanton and all of his people. Where are you guys? Not that you're hard to find, but there's Jack. Jack's hard to find. He dresses like a normal person. Nick's easy to find. He dresses like some refugee from the red carpet. But they're here, Celebrity Branding Agency, and a number of my clients work with them. I work with them. We've brought them into high-end coaching groups. They do a great job. at making the world think you are far more important than you actually are. And they have provided some information which is on pages 4 through 7 in your manual. If you ate or drank at the arrival reception last night, or you eat or drink during the breaks, you have Infusionsoft to thank. And they come as much to be nice to all of you who are already Infusionsoft users because how many of you are Infusionsoft users? Raise your hands. See, so not a big, opportunity here for them. They come as client appreciation more than anything else, but it would be nice at least for you to stop by and see Cynthia there. Richard Sepula, our ROI guy, Kim Walsh-Phillips, the only person even telling half the truth about social media that I know. Kia Arian, who does a lot of graphic works for me and is here. The annoying little foreign guy, Partiv Shah. We actually were 3 over in the vans going to dinner last night, and they said, is there anybody we can put in the luggage department? I said, yeah, you bet. I got the perfect guy, right? He drove himself, which was a wise move because I was deadly serious. I mean, he fit in there just perfect. Their company does just an incredible job of stealing all my stuff. And it's just like, John, it's just like being in a foreign market, okay? So it's just like being in China or India with him because he steals all my stuff. And then he does and I mean all of it. And no piece of this pig left behind. And he does a marvelous job of implementing it for everybody. Dean Kellingbeck, who's here with the New Customers Now team, who has been around forever and does a fabulous job with direct mail, and of course GKIC. And in the back, Pete the printer, standing up next to Vicki, if you don't know Pete. Some stuff there is on page 10. And of course, as you know, we have official charities, which I'll talk about in a second. So please be nice to our exhibitors and sponsors. We need them. They come, in many cases, more as customer appreciation than they do as anything else, but they go out of their way to bring some new stuff too. Several of them will be doing at meal presentations, so I can tell you that. So let's see here. Lunch today, which is in the Skyline Room, is with Dick Snanton. Dinner tonight in the Skyline Room, Richard Sepula. They are all doing 20-minute presentations. Kim Walsh-Phillips tomorrow at lunch. That is a Playfair deal. Okay? If you are absolutely determined not to pay attention to what they have brought to share with us, don't eat the food. Okay? There's restaurants right down the hill. Hit the bricks. So if you eat the food, give them your attention for the 20 minutes, and by God, you might learn something you don't already know. Last night's charity dinner, so everybody, well, first of all, my table hosts, Kim Walsh-Phillips, Ari Galper, who barely got here, and I assume took a cab or a limo or something from the airport, Ben Glass, Connor Heaney from England, the annoying little Partiv Shah guy. Thank you for hosting, and thank everybody for coming. How many were at the dinner last night? So we raised, I don't know, $8,500 or so. When it all nets out, we'll be in the $6,000 neighborhood, which I double. So thank you. That means a lot to those folks. And we do have a silent auction outside if you haven't seen it, which also benefits those folks. So there is, courtesy of Nancy Angelus. Is she and Leonard here yet? No. Okay. So you can't thank them other than bidding, but they have made some very nice embroidered souvenir blankets, and they come with a 1-hour phone consultation with me or a comprehensive critique of marketing. And Bill, you're certainly welcome to take them all if you would like. Bill has a really interesting strategy. Okay? So occasionally now, and very occasionally, I speak somewhere else, but my own event or a GKIC event, and for some reason, Bill is like the last guy following the Grateful Dead or Jimmy Buffett around the country. He'll be there even though the events have nothing to do with him. I don't know why he's there. It has nothing to do with his business, but it's almost becoming me and my shadow. So Bill's there. And often at those events, I will bundle in phone consulting as a bonus with a product offer. And it's often the whole package is less than the street rate for the phone consulting. So Bill has bought like the same product, I think, 9 times in the past 3 years. And I assume every once in a while he has a big garage sale or there's an eBay site or something that I don't know about. And then he strips out the phone consultation and cheats me out of money. So there's a page out there on the auction table. It looks like this. You guys should all know how silent auction works. You bid. High bid, of course, will get it. And we have, I don't know, a handful of these, so we will give the lower bidders a chance to up their ante if they want one. There's a cool little T-shirt somebody gave me that says, "Enjoy my tonality." That's bundled with a 1-hour phone consultation as well. There is a Day with Dan by itself. The other two, by the way, have no reserves. This does have a minimum. I think somebody's already bid the minimum, if I'm not mistaken. So this is kind of hang out with me day. No, you can't have 8 people chip in and all come for the day, just for the record. And it comes with 1 hour. Yeah, so here's the thing about that. So here's a little modus operandi thing for you. Okay? So I've been at this now, depending on how you want to count, for 43 years. I was doing a mastermind group the other day for Laurel Langmeyer here. And so there's, 15 people in the room and Horseshoe, and I walk in and I think to myself, I've been in this exact same room. Been doing this for 42 years, And I say to myself regularly, I have now seen every which way somebody can screw with me. Okay? It's over. I have seen it. There's nothing anybody can invent that I know that I don't anticipate anymore. I just, and it's endless. It's just endless. So every time I modify my paperwork based on the experience I just had, that surprised me. So, over the years, my speaker contract was once a paragraph. For a long time, it was a page. Now it has gone to a page plus a paragraph because I already had it in 10-point, and if you put it in any smaller than that, people think you're trying to sneak something by them. But somebody invented something new that I had never seen, and I had to add a paragraph. So it was fine because I didn't tell them they couldn't do it, but we bid some kind of day with me, and Bill and Nelson and Mike Crow, and I don't know, they divided it up amongst 18, 20, 40, 60 people, A bus came. It's sort of like the Republican debate. Everybody got 4 quality minutes, and then we moved on to the next, But I had to take them to lunch, it was so you will see at the top of this thing, there will be up to 3 participants put into this group. That means I may take 3 bidders and put them into this group. That does not mean you can put 3 in. Are we clear? Clear. So that really is a little modus operandi thing, though, to put in your head, is every time somebody does something, go fix your paperwork. All right? If something happens that you don't like, all right, and you didn't prohibit it before, you got no gripe. Somebody was creative, or somebody was as pushy as I am, or somebody was just stupid. Doesn't make any difference, right? But as soon as you experience it, go find the paperwork that relates to it and put it in. So I didn't do this year. I have a file for events. So as soon as I had that experience, I went and modified my language for the next time I did anything like this. Right? Again, it's not foolproof because people keep inventing shit, but it does stop a lot of stuff from reoccurring. So there is a very cool day with Dan. We hang out at the track. You can take pictures of yourself jogging a horse. We'll put racing colors on you if you want to. People will laugh at you, but what the hell. We'll do a little hot seat style consulting session. We'll go have a real nice lunch. Les Roberts has volunteered to hang out with us at lunch and talk about writing and character development and whatever. And we'll have a real nice dinner at Kozar's, and you get a 1-hour phone consultation. What else we got? We have a sit-in as a silent observer at the last Titanium meeting of the year, which is the top-level mastermind group for information marketers. So you can sit in. You and I will have lunch, and you'll get a set of the recordings that the 2014 Titanium guys did together, and there's a reserve on that, and all that money goes to our 2 animal charities. Let's see. So I want to recognize a few dignitaries who are here, unfortunately. I mean, literally, 3/4 of the room is lifers, so, I could express appreciation and give recognition to everybody, but we don't want that much time. But I'm going to mention some at the risk of annoying those who don't get mentioned. First of all, from GKIC, Dave and Nick, of course, are here, and some other people are here, but Dave Stadola's here, and what's her name that we got from Nightingale Conant? What? Thank you. Johanna's here, but she really doesn't. She's like so new. She's wet, so she doesn't deserve any recognition. But Dave goes back a long way. What first year? 1995. Okay. From Infusionsoft, as I said, Cynthia Hernandez is here. Of course, the Dixon-Nanton gang are here. But then long lifers. So we have Titanium members first. So Titanium members, if you would just stand so people see you. Dr. Burleson is here, who does a wonderful job coaching orthodontists and dentists. Mike Crow is here. Funny. Mike's had the Bruce Jenner deal. Is that what has happened here? Hey, not that there's anything. So Mike, they have 2 businesses. They have home inspector community, and they also provide coaching support to kind of new coaches. So that's pretty cool. Roxanne Emmerich. Roxanne, in the room, where are you? I got lights in my eyes. There you are. I'll bet you're wearing, and I got lights in my eyes. I can't see. I didn't see you earlier. Purple or navy leather jacket. There we go. She is the business development person for banks. Greg Luther is here, and a great coach to realtors. And Greg and I are both involved with harness racing. I bought a horse from him, which he told me has had 3 good legs. And we're still trying to determine which 3 those are, but I'm sure that's true. Craig Simpson. Is Craig here in the room somewhere? So Craig is my direct mail guy, my list guy. We co-authored a book together, which if you don't have it, you should get it. Jill and Ron Wolforth, Titanium members. Coaches to future baseball phenoms and current injured baseball pros in crawling back into their careers. Which month, Sports Illustrated? Can they see it online? Is the article somewhere? Okay. So if you have online access to Sports Illustrated or can somehow figure out how to find an 8-year-old to do that for you, there was how many pages? I mean, you were like this 10-page article about them in the baseball issue of Sports Illustrated this year. And so we congratulate them on that. Real long lifers, if you would just stand real quick and yell out your year of origination, if you would. Gail Carson. we go. Chris DeRee. Is Chris here? Ah. 96. 80. I think I'll bet in advance you're the winner. I'm not sure, but I'll bet. We'll make like a mutual destruction pact. When you go, I'll go. John Duquesne, Mr. Kettleball, where are you? There you are. Okay. Mal Emery from Australia. He steals whatever of mine Partiv leaves. Yes. 96, okay. Darren Garman. Darren, you here? There we go. Darren manages my real estate money until there's no real estate money left to manage. That's our arrangement. 1994, Ben Glass, my favorite lawyer. Late 1990s. Bill Goff rhymes with cough. Oh, I wasn't supposed to read that. 2004. Michael Gray, 1996. Ron LeGrand is here. Okay. So, 1990. Ron, by the way, is speaking at this year's Info Summit about putting butts in seats. And he may not hold the record for the most number of butts in seats, but he probably holds the record in his industry for the most number of butts in seats, and probably for a combination of most butts in seats, least money left in their wallets when they leave. That record he probably holds. I don't know if you know what I say when you're not around. Do you? Okay. So here's what I say about Ron when he's not around. I say, when Iran drops the big one on us and there's nothing left, there will be cockroaches and there will be Ron LeGrand, okay? Because you can't kill him, okay? A lot of people have tried, okay? And you would think he was dead, and then a month later, you hear him on the radio again. And he will have the cockroaches all organized in a circle around him, and he'll be selling them something. And that's Ron. Ken McCarthy's only going to be here for Modus Operandi Day, but if you don't know Ken, he actually did invent the internet. Larry Parman, where's Larry? Great wealth management business, and Larry was for how long? Secretary of Commerce of Oklahoma. Yeah, for 2 years. Larry and I collaborated on trying to convince business owners that there were really hardly any tornadoes or earthquakes or, those sorts of problems in Oklahoma. And we found some statistical construct that, made it more dangerous to be in Pennsylvania than it was to be in Oklahoma. Craig Proctor, private client who revolutionized marketing in real estate. How long, Bobby? There you go. I always like to. So when Craig started to use free recorded messages as a real estate agent, we had phone maxes, phone machines, and you had like shelves of phone machines for different messages. So when you tell that now, you have to explain to everybody what the hell a phone machine was, because you're now having to explain landlines. Robin Robbins, Red's here, who's been in Titanium and guru to the IT community. You're fairly new to me, aren't you? No? 98, okay. And Nelson Searcy, whose chief role in being here is protecting us all from being struck by lightning, because he's a pastor, and the #1 coach to pastors across the country. How long, Nelson? Mid-90s. And so I usually make him sit right next to the lawyers, but in this case, probably the greatest risk to everybody of a lightning strike is me. And so far, Nelson has been very successful at keeping me from being struck. Here's the horse with the 3 good legs I bought from what's his face over there? And I mean, he actually manages to get them all off the ground, even that one that drags every step of the. Let's see, we have the drawing for people who return their questionnaires. The prize is 1/3 of a private consulting day, which can be redeemed in various formats. And we are going to do that drawing when we come back from dinner this evening, and you must be present to win. So if you are not here precisely when we say we're going to return, we will draw another ticket until we get to somebody who is here. Agenda. So here's what's happening today. You do not have this in your book, by the way. So we're here. And lunch will be, there'll be a break at approximately 10 o'clock. Lunch will be from approximately 12 to 1. You get an extra 15 minutes afterwards to smoke, go to the bathroom, make a phone call, update your Facebook site, do all four at the same time. Some of you won't, but I have a new observation about all that, by the way. So Greg knows we'll have a racehorse that won't empty out before the race, meaning they refuse to take a crap. And it either slows them down or they do it like right behind a gate and the driver gets coated with it. Neither one of which is really attractive. But most of them, if you put them in a trailer and drive them, they'll take a dump. So literally, there are horses that you put in the horse trailer behind the truck, like right before you're going to warm them up and go to the paddock to race, and drive them around the parking lot a couple of times until they take a dump. So it's now my observation that some people can't actually like update their Facebook and check their phone messages and make a phone call and send a text unless they're driving. So if that's you at the break, the doors are open. You're welcome to go sit in my Jeep that's out front and get a picture of you in the Jeep and text somebody and make a phone call and update your Facebook site all at the same time. Just don't take a dump. That's all I ask. So you got an extra 15 minutes to work all that out. And then, this is the wrong day, Dan, there. And then you have dinner in the Skyline, and you have an extra 15 minutes after that to take care of all that stuff. And then we have an evening with Anita, which of course you all know. Friday, we're starting a half an hour earlier than we are starting today. So you will find continental breakfast goodies down here, and you will find the exhibitors down here starting at 7 o'clock. We will start promptly at 8. You will have lunch with Kim Walsh-Phillips, and you will have an extra 15 minutes afterwards to take care of your personal needs. And we will break at 4:30. Dinner is on your own. The hotel is doing some sort of expedited trough system to assist you in the restaurant. And the modus operandi group, which most of you are staying, there's a few who aren't, and there's a few who are arriving just for that, will begin at 6:30, so the day actually starts the night before. Okay? And Saturday, 7 to 8 again, continental breakfast. We'll start the session at 8, and you have lunch with no speaker, and we are done at 3:30 in the afternoon, and we got to get out of there because 2 people are foolishly getting married. I offered to call and try and talk them out of it, but Barb wanted the business, you know. And a cancellation clause here, I think, is only 75% or something at the last minute if there's a runaway bride or groom. So she wanted 100% of the money. Page 18, just sort of a nudge There's more than one way to get value by being here. You don't actually have to hear anything that is stunningly new. I think you might, but you don't need to. I meant to bring it and put up here. And for years in my platinum groups, people actually passed it around and wore it. We have what I call the SFB Club hat, and the SFB Club hat stands for Shit for Brains. And so people would take turns wearing it whenever they and everybody realized that they had stopped doing something that was working and had no explanation for why they had stopped. That earned you the cap until the next person's confession of the same silly behavior. It happens a lot. There's a lot of, distraction and deviation and gravitational pull away from fundamentally successful business practices. And so you can get value just by being reminded of what you know but aren't necessarily utilizing. You can get value just by being forced to sort of question some assumption or belief or opinion you have. You can get value just by redirecting assets you already have. And we're going to be talking a lot about that. Some of you got here kind of dragging, and I don't mean like a dragon, I mean dragging your ass. So you can leave sort of reinvigorated about your business. And if you do some of the things we talk about, you might stay reinvigorated longer than you do. You might find brand new opportunity, get goaded into doing something new that you're not doing. You might, particularly if you're aggressive at it, you might meet up with somebody who can be helpful to you. You might get your spine stiffened. Some of my favorite faxes are, I went home and I fired 2 of them. So you might get your spine stiffened about something. The idea is not to walk out of here with 5,000 pages of notes that you never use. And so I've given you a place to put the most important items on a couple of pages, beginning with 19, that look like this. And I encourage you to, so put a Post-it note on 19, or fold the corner down, or stick a piece of your pastry in there or something so you can flip back to it. That's a great place to put the short list of things that occur to you that you really intend to act on, that you really intend to implement. And I encourage you to assign a dollar value to them, and then go home and try and get that money. I have a prize. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so thank you, Kim, because you solved that question. I have a prize for everybody. So on page 21, I think you have 3 or 4 of these in there. You have a page that looks like this. Turn them in all during the event. Vicki will accumulate them. And at some point before we all leave, I'm going to pick the best one, and they will get, courtesy of Kim Walsh Phillips, a nifty refrigerator magnet that I just threw on the ground, her new LinkedIn domination course. So you will get that. And you will get the ROI Yearbook, which is a resource guide, a collection of everything that they gave clients last year, the Facebook Sales Funnel course, and a 30-minute strategy session, which all told is a $2,000 value. And so somebody's going to earn that by turning in the coolest version of that form. I will warn you, you all know these warnings. Those of you that give seminars give these warnings. But still, when we do one of these and you attend one of these, you sort of start with a bunch of knee-jerk reactions that are to occur really no matter how good you are. I find they occur no matter how rich somebody is. So my richest clients run a company that this year's on pace to do 1.8, 1.9, just shy of 2 billion. They might break 2 billion, and they're loaded. And try as they might, they get themselves into this stuff in conversations and in discussions and in meetings. And certainly their next layer of people get themselves into this a lot. My poorest client is in it too. So wealth doesn't actually seem to affect this mental behavior. Type of business doesn't seem to affect this type of behavior. There's little gremlins in our heads that rear up and make this argument when we are presented with information and ideas, particularly things that might require work or change or difficulty, and they are your enemy. It's impossible for these to create any profit, and so you got to be kind of aware of them. The my business is different thing, of course, is huge. So every example, it's like, well, yeah, but how does that possibly relate to me? All businesses are the same in that somebody has to generate a lead or a prospect. The prospect somehow has to get into a sales event. Somebody has to try and sell them something. And if they buy it, they got to be developed. And if they don't, they got to be chased. All businesses are that. So my customers are different. No, they're not. I keep proving it over and over again, and people still, so B2Bers think their business and their customers are different than B2Cers, and people that have rich people think their customers. There's a whole discussion in the news right now. So the New York Times did a big story yesterday or the day before about Rubio, one of the 412 Republican candidates for president. And his horrible financial behavior and judgment. He's got 3 houses with mortgages on them. Ron, good story for you to use. It's in the New York Times article, I think it's yesterday, about Marco Rubio, and it was on the front page of the New York Times, incredibly. He has 3 houses, and 2 of them he bought with no money down. So you should have a tweet. You should have a tweet going out today. Well, see, your message should be, if he was a student, not only would he have bought him with no money down, but he would have had him paid off, flipped 4 times by now. You know, what they don't know, they don't know. But anyway, there's this whole conversation, and I watched. If you know who Ratner is, he's now on Morning Joe in the mornings. I watched him tortuously try and equate Rubio's behavior, which is to have 3 mortgages. So he got this $800,000 book advance deal or something, and he immediately bought 2 more houses. He had one, and the worst of the houses has an in-ground pool and nicely manicured bushes and oversized windows. And he bought himself an $80,000 boat, and he paid off his law school loans. And so they were tortuously trying to compare this to Hillary's financial behavior. But the point was made that, and it's a good point, that first of all, this is what 99.9% of the people would do if they suddenly got $800,000. And by the way, a billionaire would do it if he suddenly got $800,000 too. They all go blow the money on something. That's just what we do. And it's what everybody does. And so that's why there's stuff made for really rich people to go blow their money on. And there's stuff made for really poor people to blow their money on. You know? And the poor people, if they get any money, they blow it because they say to themselves, it doesn't matter, right? The money's all going to be gone in a week anyway. No, I heard that conversation from my parents when we were poor. So they would go, if they got any, they would like blow it. And so they had a regular series of things to blow it on, and they had episodic things to blow it on. So like a big deal was go Thursday night, leave the house at like 10 o'clock at night, and go to the Perkins Pancake House to have dessert with other poor people who congregated and blew their money. And I said at one point, why don't you guys just all get together, buy a pie, you know, and come be at a house, right? You could buy a pie for everybody for what you are each paying for a piece of pie. And this is, you know, why poor people are poor. But see, a really rich guy, he gets a big windfall of money. He I don't know, he buys a bakery or something. He buys, so everybody blows it. No customer, they're not different. Okay? I got the CEO of a $2 billion hospital to respond to a lead generation campaign, fill out a form, fax it back to schedule a phone appointment. And nobody thought, these people will never, yeah, they're no different than the doofus we deal with. They are, you know what they are. We've never done it that way. Or sort of the other alternative of this is, yeah, but that's not the business we're in, you know, which, again, with my really rich client, I have that conversation a lot. I'm going, yeah, but you weren't in any of the businesses you're in before you were in them. It's not, you know, mama didn't pop you out of the womb running any one of these businesses. You got in every one of them. And about 4 of them have nothing to do with each other. So how is that? How does that make any sense? But it gets in the way. It's not permitted. People are real big on telling me all the shit that they are not allowed to do in their industry or their profession, which 90% of it is wrong. I just had to fire a client who I really like, and the firing was amicable, but I had to like walk away from a lot of money and even give money back, which, because there's this culture in his company of this is not allowed. This is legally, which it isn't. You hear this a lot. My staff won't let me. And some people won't enunciate it, but they think it. You know, if I go home with this, and the staff will mutiny, they'll all quit, they'll go into slow-mo like the Baltimore Police Department is now. Well, they are. I don't blame them, by the way, but 42% spike in violent crime in Baltimore in the last month because nobody really wants to do their police work being filmed and then prosecuted. It's a problem. My staff won't let me. We don't have any time for that, and the corporate version of that is we have no budget for that. Right? Which, same point. You didn't have a budget for anything you're doing before you did it. There was no budget for when something new is thought up, we'll spend the money on that. Nobody does that when they create a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year budget. So it didn't exist for any of the shit you're doing now. Why does it need to exist for this new thing we just decided to do? All right, doesn't make any sense, but it's there. And the big premise that we are going to be counter to the entire time we're here is this. So most business owners, and it's hard not to, they wake up every morning thinking just about growth. All right? And that's pretty much all they think about. How can we sell more stuff? As an info marketer in any business niche, the number one easiest thing to always pitch is more new customers. Okay? Their business can be in such disarray that putting one more customer on there into that business is, you know, like putting 10 more rats in a really small Vietnamese restaurant's kitchen. There's like only so much capacity, and then the thing just tips, you know. But that's what they want. They were waking up, if I just had more new customers, everything would be wonderful. It's the cure for cancer, and, you know, because that's what they wake up thinking about. And it's the easiest thing to think about, is how do we get more customers and how do we sell more stuff? And that's what everybody thinks about. And in many cases, that's not the... So if you look at General Motors, which is a god-awful mess, and was a god-awful mess, still is a god-awful mess, they will be in bankruptcy at some point. You can count on it. But I assure you, there's very few people there waking up every morning, and the only thing they're thinking about is how can we figure out how to finally make a car we don't have to recall? How can we actually get something out the door that we don't have to take back? There's a ton of people waking up every day talking about how can we sell more cars? And how can we get the dealers to sell more cars? And how can we get the dealers to spend more money on advertising so we can get more people in the showrooms so we can sell more cars? That's what everybody's talking about. Hardly anybody. They probably got 12 people in a basement windowless room somewhere who are having a conversation about how can we actually make something that doesn't explode or fall apart or breaks lock and kill people. And every company does this. It's really quite remarkable. Right? So we're going to talk about almost everything but that because there's a much more sophisticated and interesting way to get to where you want to be than just doing more. The corollary principle from my Seven Figs Academy is that you don't actually make big leaps by doing more of the same stuff, by running harder and faster. If you get growth that way, you tend to get disintegration of net sustainability or value. So the 10th preview speaker you have out on the road is never as productive as the first and the second one. The 10th outlet never works as well as the first and the second one. As soon as we start cloning for growth, we always have to accept an unavoidable disintegration of quality, of profit, of sustainability, because we start getting customers in a way that leaves them feeling like they want a cold shower after they buy, or that they don't get treated well while they're having their customer experience. So things begin to disintegrate. I mean, even Disney, who is better than anybody I've ever seen in my life at managing growth upon growth upon growth upon growth. If you're very astute and you've been a Disney observer for many years, you can go to Disney and you can spot the slippage. It's slight. It's less than I can imagine how they manage, but it is there. It is there. As they have amped up the number of films they make, they've made more mistakes, for example. So now their losers are like, to them, like you losing a quarter out of your pocket and not being able to find it when you take a break today. It's like, yeah, right. You know, Tomorrowland didn't do well, huh? But still, you know, mistakes are made. There's slippage in the quality. So when you try and get the big leaps to where you want to be just by doing and having people do more of the same stuff and do more of it, do it faster, do it in more places, there's a big price to be paid if that's the only approach. So I say there's three things you do. You make these leaps by doing some of the same things that you do, but doing them differently. Doing some different things, and doing different things differently than anybody else is doing, and some in each one of those three categories. And we're going to look in some depth and detail at all of them. The difficult trick for people is being willing to question everything and to test and disprove as much as possible. Because what happens and I fight it personally. So the longer I do what I do, the more I, quote, quote, know about what won't work because it hasn't worked. But facts change. There are few permanent facts. And so the only sane approach, and those of us who live in direct marketing see we're like at least 50% of the time, anybody good would tell you, Carlton, Benzavinga, Bill and Greg at Guthrie Renker, anybody who's honest will tell you at least 50% of the time when we split test things, we're wrong about what we think is going to happen in the split test. So if you leave it up to us to pick one, or you let yourself pick one, you will be wrong. So if that's true about headline A versus headline B versus headline C, it's really true about everything. Our own predetermined base of what we think is knowledge, which is really only experience and opinion, is going to be wrong a significant percentage of the time. All right? And so, like, see, I thought the big Disney flop was going to be Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, I thought that was going to be the loser, and those guys had to fight to make that thing. I actually thought the Lone Ranger was going to be a big hit. Now, of course, once you saw it, but I mean, the premise, I'm thinking, this is going to kick ass and take names, right? I mean, and Guardians of the Galaxy, what? There's these strange, obscure Marvel characters that nobody's seen in 20 years, and it's a talking raccoon, and really? I mean, I'm thinking, should I sell my stock and then buy it back on the dip? Because this thing is going to crater, right? And if you read Disney literature, a whole lot of Disney people thought the same thing. There was a lot of internal opposition to Guardians of the Galaxy. So it really is, can you get out of your own way? Can you just constantly question everything? Should we be selling this at all? Should we be selling it in the format we sell it in? Should we be pricing it at what we price it at? Should we be even letting these customers in through our doors, or should we be doing something to keep them out? Should we be selling to different people? Should we be selling in different ways? You know, even questioning what's working. Because just because it's working doesn't mean it's going to keep working. There's a lot of stuff that stops working, some of it abruptly. And so this is very tough. And of everybody I work with, the ones that are best at this, and I don't think anybody's perfect at it, the ones that are best at this are definitely the ones who are making the most money. So where we will ask all these questions, where we will probe is these 7 areas. And there's overlap. So everything's not perfectly ordered. It can't be. But we will be looking at how to find concealed opportunities in your business, adjacent to your business, in your market, in an adjacent market, stuff you don't see that is there to be found. We'll be talking about outright reinvention. How do we just take a business and make it into something substantially different? We'll be talking about processes and systems, which is really where all the stability is. So even despite the deflated balls, the New England Patriots are a much better asset than the Denver Broncos, because the Denver Broncos are dependent on a quarterback. Belichick has a system. You can plug people in and out almost with abandon, and after about 3 weeks, the whole thing recovers and it runs again just like it did when you took the parts out, right? And that's about processes and systems, not about people. So like one of the things I say about that, I'll jump just for a second because we'll come back to it, is, so one of the worst pieces of news I ever hear from somebody is, I finally found the guy. I found a star salesman who is finally closing every call and kicking ass and taking names. I said, that's the worst piece of news you've given me in 6 months, right? Because you're either going to lose him, he's going to die, you're going to have to shoot him, something. See, he ain't no asset. He's a liability waiting to happen. Now, if you tell me you've built a system and you've run 6 different salespeople through it, and within an acceptable range of variance, they're all hitting numbers, that we should celebrate. That's the asset. The star performer ain't no asset. The star performer is a liability waiting to happen. Right? I had one of those. Carla running my company. Star performer. Hands off. Not delegation, abdication. Right? Unfortunately, when they go south, they really go south. You know? Divorce, not run company, all in same day. And there's one of her. This is a bad day. This is a really bad day. Hard to have a worse one other than like the death of your child or something. I mean, it's a bad day. So the star performer's no asset. They're a liability waiting to happen. Systems and processes are assets. Customer development. So most people, again, they think about growth. And when they think about growth, they think about they think in terms of how do we get more customers. They don't really think about how do we develop the customer once we get them. So they don't really think of the customer as an asset. They think of the customer in a very transactional way. And it's worse in businesses that have an unlimited supply, of course, because they tend to value them the least. Whereas businesses that are dealing with a small niche or a small subculture or a small market, often those people are smarter. But by and large, there is no real thought to this, right? So for example, just as an example, and we will live in it for a long period of time, but so it's on my mind because after a week, I'm still really pissed off. And I haven't had time to write the complaint letter, but Sunday morning, it's #1 on the stack, baby. So Pete and I went to Playhouse to see O'Reilly and Dennis Miller. And Playhouse is a nonprofit. It's our theater in Cleveland. And so mostly it's Broadway theaters and stuff. But they have diversified smartly. And they have other stuff, so they get money. So I'm a donor circle member. I give them a decent-sized amount of money every year just to be nice. And then I don't go as often as I would like, but so we went to this, and the VIP seats were $525 a piece, and that's, I don't get a freebie because I give them a bunch of money. I buy a couple tickets, and that includes the speed date backstage afterwards with the, shake hand, take picture, move on deal, which they euphemistically call a reception. It's about as unreceiving as a reception could, but that's not my beef. And my beefs are many, and that's not the point I'm about to make either. But so there are probably 50 donor circle people there who, this is like birthdays in restaurants. Hardly anybody goes alone. They always bring somebody because when you're a big shot in something, you like to show it off. So almost everybody brings friend or client or family, with them to the theater, to the highfalutin VIP seats. That person is not a donor circle member, right? But birds of a feather tend to flock together. Yeah, sometimes you might take poor people with you to the theater, but mostly not. You take a socioeconomic peer, right? Do they capture that person's contact information to do any follow-up with? No. Do they have a reception beforehand just for that little group so they can meet and greet and talk with the guests of the donors. There's a donor strata. There's a gold, platinum, super platinum, there's levels, right? So customer development would be, let's do something to move the donors who are at this level up to this level while we have them here, and they're having a really nice, so none of this happens. And we could make a list of 50 other customer development things, none of which happens because there's nobody sitting in a room thinking every day, how do we develop the patron we have into a more valuable patron? They're thinking about, how do we pack the place out for tomorrow night's show? That's what they're thinking about. So customer development, co-opting other people's assets and businesses, using things as your own that you do not own, media platform, and leverage and power. So those are the areas in which we are going to play. And so this gets to what Disney called, if you flip to page 30, what Disney called the theory of your business. And this is Walt's chart from, I forget the year, but a long time ago. And a few pages later, I gave you the whole story of this, which you can read at on your own time. But so Walt talked about the theory of the business, how things work in an integrated and interrelated way to build revenue, build profit, build sustainability, and build value. And Disney has, in part, what they call the theory of sustainable value. And they deviate from it, and then they realize they've deviated from it, and they get mad at themselves, and then they fix it. So like Iger a few years ago had a royal shit fit over the making of one-and-done movies because that is in complete violation of the theory of sustainable value. When you make the movie with Tim Allen and John Travolta and whoever the hell else it was about old guys in a motorcycle gang, this connects to nothing. Nothing here. There's no stuffed toys. There's no ride. There's no franchise. You can't put it in here pretty much anywhere. And they had lopped into doing a fair number of these things before they woke up, and looked at the chart again and said, what in the hell are we doing, And so a good question, and read this at your own leisure, is, what is the whole theory of my business? How many of you are Amazon stockholders? Raise your hands. Only a few. See, there's companies you should own a couple shares in if you don't want to own any more, just to get the annual reports and just to be on the conference call if you want to. And Amazon is one of them because Bezos is really good at this. He has a complex theory of the business. So I do have Amazon annual reports copied for any of you who want them. Let me think about what we're going to do with them. Jack, do you care if we put them at your booth? Okay. So by lunch, we'll have the Amazon annual reports at Jack and Nick's booth. And if obviously share the ones that raise your hand, you don't need to get one. But the rest of you, I suggest you get it. And if you read the Disney one first, and then you read the Bezos one, and by the way, he always includes the first year's annual report. So there's this year's annual report, and there's the 1997. It's not the whole annual report. It's the letter to the shareholders, in which he really is laying out his theory of the business and selling it to shareholders and continuing to sell a company that doesn't make any money, yet on its theory of its business to shareholders, which is not the easiest sales job in the world. And so it's instructive, and it should cause you. We're going to spend some time on this modus operandi day, I think, or we'll look at it later, but like my little business, this is my theory of my business. And we'll come back to it, and we'll deal with that. But you ought to have one And you ought to be able to explain it to yourself, and you ought to be able to explain it to other people. You would be surprised at how many people come to a consulting day, and if you hand them a marker and you give them a whiteboard, they really are not capable of doing this. Draw me the diagram. Iacocca told me this great story of when he took over Chrysler when it was going bankrupt the first time, and he had to cut payroll. And you couldn't fire any of the union guys, so you could only fire salaried white-collar guys. He spent 3 days with a whiteboard in his office, bringing one in after another, handing him a marker and saying, stopwatch in his hand, draw me a diagram of how whatever the hell you do causes us to sell a car. I'm just curious. And then anybody that couldn't draw the diagram, he fired him. He said, if I figured out I needed them, I imagined we could go back and get them. He said, but it turns out there wasn't anybody we went back and got. Now, the funny part about that is the word's got to get around, you know? So you would think by the third day, somebody would come in prepared, even if they had to lie. Here, let me show you this diagram, right? I mean, you would think, it's like if you watch Shark Tank all the time, you think, don't you people ever watch the show? Before you go on the show, wouldn't you watch the show? People that call into Dr. Laura on the radio. What? Don't you listen to this show? That first sentence, you know exactly what she is going to do, right? And so I thought it was funny, and he said, well, I really hadn't thought about it, but yeah, you would have thought somebody would have got their act together by the third day. But so that's easy. That should be easy. This is complicated. How does everything we're doing synergistically relate to and support everything else we're doing? What is the overarching theory of our business? So let's start with finding concealed opportunities. I am now on page 39. And to do this, there are really 3 things I think you need. One is you need a system for doing it the same way every time you revisit, which might be every quarter, it might be every year, it might be every day, depending upon how screwed up your thing is or how unsatisfied with it you are. But you really need to build a regimen that you go through methodically, that you take your business and you run it through the same meat grinder every so often, looking for concealed opportunities. Now, you're going to get a lot of little checklists as we go along. So a lot of what you're going to walk out of here with can be assembled into that. And then you really ought to think it through and have a way that you and or your team periodically approach. Let's question everything we're doing. Let's try and see what we are not seeing. Let's run it through these questions. I will give you on Modus Operandi Day, I have a whole little list for you of what I listen for most with a new consulting client. And there's stuff in there that you might move into this system. Secondly, you need a lot of focused input. By that I mean input that is directly related to your business. So for example, we were talking at dinner last night with one of the 2 groups that I was with, and we were talking about what Dan reads, which I'm going to give you all that at Modus Operandi Day 2. But one of the things I read a lot are trade journals. And whoever was at the dinner table said, you can identify yourself if you wish. She said, I find I read a client's trade journals and I know more about the business they're in than they do. There's all sorts of stuff going on they don't even know is happening. And I find exactly the same thing. So I read trade journals in, give or take, 20, 25 categories. Not that I read them all word for word, and not that I read them every month, but I skim, choose, read. And I often find they're not even reading their own trade journals. Right? Now, I got to read like 20 of them. Generally speaking, you only need to read 2 or 3 that are in your particular industry to know what's going on, And so people are surprised by stuff they should not be surprised by, and they miss stuff they should not miss because it's laid out for them right there in front of them in what I call focused input, in the journal that is assembled for them about the particular industry or business or profession they're in. And if you're not even reading that, if you're in my business and you're not reading Ad Age, Target, DM News, Response, you're really not in the game. I mean, you don't even know what's going on. So you need focused input. I have a relative who continually claims that he is. Sometimes he claims he is. Sometimes he claims he's becoming an entrepreneur. I'm the lone family member who hasn't loaned money to his enterprises. And I haven't done so because on this particular stated ambition, he's full of shit. And the way you know he's full of shit is, so he's a tech entrepreneur, is that I could offer you $1 million to go through the entire house and you will not find, not only won't you find a business book, you will not find a book, a biography or autobiography about any tech entrepreneur. Edison to Jobs, don't make any difference. You won't find one, not one. And I know more about every one of them than he does, and I have no ambition to be a tech entrepreneur. I wish it would all go away. A little clock, a little fax machine. I'm still not sure about that Keurig thing. I'm warming up to it, but it still seems easier to me to make a pot of it. It just make the pot, get some all day long. If there's some left over, dump it down the sink. It just, I don't know. And Carla goes, but I got you 22 flavors. I said, we now have a drawer and a little organizer in it and little organized Keurig cups. It's impressive when somebody comes for a consulting day, I guess. But anyway, see, he's full of shit, right? And then the next question is, what trade journals are you reading? None. Answer to, will you loan me money? No. No. Easy answer. If you won't even get the focused input that directly relates to what you're doing, who's kidding who, right? Then the third thing you need is random, eclectic input. You need some time where you go to places that are not directly related to your thing and poke around. Because sometimes that's where you get it. Right? So, like, I go to Disney for that purpose 4 or 5 times a year. Sometimes by myself, because even Carla's a distraction, let alone dragging kids with you, which I think is really futile. But I go there. A good day for me is go to the bookstore, go to the shopping mall, watch people, get somebody to pitch me on some product, go see what they're selling in Bed Bath & Beyond, and then go to the dollar store and spend an hour at the dollar store. That's like eclectic input. I made fun years ago of Greg Renker because we were rushed for lunch in Palm Desert, and we were leaving the office, and he usually goes to like the Marriott Springs Resorts restaurant for lunch and sit outside by the waterfall, and we got 20 minutes. And we're driving down the road. He said, I don't know how we're going to. I said, right over there. There's a drugstore in that strip center, and it's got a soda fountain sign on it, right? They've built an old, like a Rexall. And you can get a tuna fish or a BLT and a milkshake and at the counter, and you can be in and out of there. He's like, what? I mean, this is like, Hillary going to Chipotle. Or, I'll take one of those burritos. I'll have one of those. John Kerry, when he was running for president in Philadelphia, is at a Philadelphia cheesesteak stand, and he asks if he can have his with brie. I swear to God. It was on camera. It was on the Philadelphia TV news for like 30 nights in a row, I mean, so Greg says, we go in. He says, this is amazing. I didn't know there was such a thing as a lunch counter. I'm going, when was the last time you were in a Walmart for 3 or 4 hours? He said, I don't think I've ever been in a Walmart. I said, it's where all your customers live. All these people that are buying your shit at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're bleary-eyed from a TV show, see, their entertainment is Walmart. They go there for like hours, and they walk every aisle, and they find crap to buy they don't need, and they eat a pretzel, and it's like you going to the country club, and you need to go to Walmart, So people are like, they insulate themselves. And, Barbara said when the first night home after they left the White House, she wakes up in the morning, and George is in bed next to her, sitting up, just sitting there. And she said, what the hell are you doing? He says, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't know. The person brings the newspaper and coffee, and where do I get coffee? Barbara says, you get it in the kitchen. Right? He says, do you make it? Yeah. Somebody actually makes it. There's not a coffee cow that you make it, right? Where do I get the newspapers? Well, it's probably at the end of the driveway. That's probably where it is. Or you're going to have to go down to the box and buy it. Says, well, when you think about it, it's like Hillary said she hasn't driven a car in 28 years. She's been behind the wheel of a car. I mean, because they're like really insulated. And I don't even fault them. They can't really help it, but we can. We can actually get out amongst our customers. We can go to some unrelated business or business event where people are doing really interesting things, and we can try and transfer. We can be provoked. So I think you need all three of these things. And I think you need to eclectically read for the same reason. I don't do it as much as I used to when I flew commercial. So my modus operandi when I flew commercial, most of you are flying commercial, right? Yeah. By the way, you did see the latest TSA thing. 37 people who are on the no-fly list or the terrorism watch list are TSA workers. So if you got less than 6 hours drive, you might want to reconsider the way you get home. But when I used to fly commercial, that was my eclectic reading time. So I would buy magazines I never read. Big, huge stack of them. Take them with me, knowing I'm going to leave 99% of them behind. So you always got weird looks from the flight attendants because I got, if I'm not working on skincare, then I don't read the women's magazines when I'm not working on skincare. But when I am, so I'd have Cosmo and Women's Health and Modern Railroading and some weird ass combination of shit that you would never normally read, and none of it went together. And you say to the steward, I'm done with this, would you like this? And after you've given them about the eighth thing, one would come over and say, what in the hell are you doing? Well, nobody's ever, it's too long a story. Just take the ones you want, throw the other ones out. But that would be my thing. Now I don't do it as often. But I do go to Barnes & Noble every once in a while, and that's one of the things I do, is I pick all the magazines I don't read on a regular basis, because you don't know what you're going to find there unless you look. So that's kind of the third thing that you do. So in a big, broad sense, I will give you more detail on modus operandi day. Here's some things that I look for when I am consulting. I think we'll do the 10 break at 10:15. So those of you that are holding it, about 10 minutes. So here's the unearthing concealed opportunity kind of checklist that I have when I'm listening to somebody tell me about their business in depth. One of the things I'm looking for is the little piece that may be more valuable than the whole. And often there is such a piece. It's the thing they don't like, but they have 3 people in a windowless room in the basement working on it. Nobody's really proud of it. Nobody thinks much of it, but it's actually a big moneymaker and could be even better than the core business. Years ago, I found it with a guy by the name of Dr. Serby, and he had this little crappy little weekend dental assistant school that they ran in the dental practice that with the staff running it and him never going there, it actually, the net for the year was roughly equivalent to the net he was taking out of the dental practice, working a 55-hour week and doing teeth personally, and he barely mentioned it. It was like, well, you know, I'm going, well, your income isn't very high. Do you do anything else? Well, we got this little dental assistant school. I said, well, tell me about that. Well, it really isn't anything. I mean, we run some ads and we get some chickies to be students, like they would go to beauty school, but their vision's not good enough, so they decide to be a dental assistant, and they pay and they come, and the staff does the classes on Saturdays in the office, and I don't even have to go. And I said, what does that look like in money? And he gives me a number. I'm going, that's the same as the whole stinking practice is doing, right? And I'll bet a lot of other dentists would like to have this, you know. And so I encounter it not often, but often enough that it suggests it's there in a lot of businesses. Trump, so TV and Trump is instructive because of 2 things. One is, I have the article. So one is, when Burnett came to Trump, Trump could have trotted out the closed architecture list in a hot second. I'm in the real estate business. This is not the business I'm in. This is not what we do. I don't have time. The whole list could have applied, and to his credit and to Burnett's credit as a salesperson, well, maybe, right? But then, here's what they identified that NBC didn't. And NBC finally rectified either 3 years later or 5 years later, is they could make a lot of money on product placement in the show. Because the construct of the original Apprentice, if you remember, was every episode actually was a business exercise that has since been abandoned, and they're doing Desperate Housewives of New Jersey, hybrid with Survivor, with a business argument over top of it. But if you remember the original Apprentice, every episode everybody actually had to sell something, do something with a product. Therefore, there was a company in play in every one of those episodes. Well, that construct was not accidental, right? Now, NBC's so dumb thinking this is going to be a giant pain in the ass to get companies to want to do this, and we may have to pay them, and so we'll make that part of your responsibility. Right? So in the first, what Burnett calls integration fees, they averaged $1.5 million an episode. And in the first 3 years, Burnett and Trump split $100 million in cash from the little side piece of the business. Now, once NBC saw it, of course, so they got their claws into it by canceling the show, and then Trump and Burnett wanting to stay on the air and them negotiating a new contract, and everybody now dips their beak. But and there's not as much of it as there was. But $100 million in 3 years, $50 million each, that's a lot of dough. I don't care if you're Trump. That's a lot of dough, right? And it's the piece of the business nobody really, thought was a piece of the, an important piece of the business. At the very beginning, Disney offered the entire film concession to Disneyland to Art Linkletter for $5,000. And Art turned him down, by the way, because he didn't think the whole thing was going to work. Right? Their override on film, on the taking of the pictures, the putting the pictures up, the making the books, which Apple has a joint venture with them. You can make your own souvenir books with the pictures that were taken. All that is $100 million or so. It's a lot of money. So that's one category. The super high margin piece of the business, if its cost of sale is erased. So this is always saying, what can't they front end? What can't they sell unless they already have the customer? But once you already have the customer, what could we sell and make a lot of money on because we don't have cost of acquisition? Cost of acquisition is brutal. We're going to talk later. It is like the worst thing in business other than staff. So I would say that, like I would rank them, having to have employees is the worst thing in business, and cost of customer acquisition is the second worst thing in business. And so there's a lot of stuff you can't afford to do unless you already have the customer, right? So I don't know that Dairy Queen could ever afford to have freestanding stores just for ice cream cakes. Okay? But the ice cream cake has an enormous profit margin in it, and you can afford to have one little cooler of it over there in the corner of the store you already got and only sell it to the customers you already got. I've only seen in a decade them run commercials for it once, and they were very short-lived. It's too narrow, right? I mean, everybody in the world might want an ice cream cone today, but not everybody's having a wedding or an anniversary or a birthday or a divorce, and then that business is all fragmented, and, they don't need a... And by the way, and Dairy Queen won't make you a cake with a profane thing on it or, a picture of your ex-spouse with bullet holes in it. They won't do it. So that further narrows, the market. So in almost every business, there's stuff that is extremely profitable if you run it only at the customers you already got, that the customer acquisition cost was covered by some other means. And sometimes none of that's being done when a lot of it could be done. The things some people want that they'll pay dearly for that are never offered to them. You can almost always, it doesn't mean that you always want to do it, but you can almost always stretch the tip of the very top of the pyramid. There are almost always people who will pay an inordinately large sum of money for something that is provided only to a small number of people within a customer base. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you want to do it. In our world, there's always somebody who would pay an extreme amount of money for an extreme amount of access. Ron could probably get $250,000 from 4 or 5 real estate trainers, wannabe real estate trainers, if he would let them move in with him for a year. I mean, they just stay at Ron's house. They stay in the hotel room with him every night. They travel across the country with him. They go to his birthday parties, and they play golf with him, and there's probably $1 million there. Now, you got to decide, is the pain quotient, of all of that, what do I want to do? But it does exist in almost every business. There's some, like, super strange, high-end piece or version of what you do that people will pay insane money for. But that it's never offered to them. Usually even the highest level of something being done anyway isn't offered to them. So like Disney has figured out, Disney's really, really good at price tiers. Right? So you can pay us this and you can get in. Or you can pay us this and you can get in. If you stay at the resort and pay us this, then we have extra early hours and we have extra late hours, so you can get in early and you can stay late and you pay us more for that. Right? You can get a speed pass in addition to that or separate from that, and that pays so you stand in shorter lines. You can buy the super speed pass that literally you make appointments with all the shit you're going to go on, and on your band it reminds you to haul your ass over to your, so you pay for that. You can pay for a private guide. So they're really good at price tiers. Hardly anybody else is really good at price tiers. Even the ones that do it don't do it very well. Right? So again, if you take this thing we went to, so it's like, I don't know, probably 300, maybe even 350 people in the VIP seats who each paid $525 for a ticket that got them a seat toward the front of the room and got them in the back afterwards to speed past Dennis Miller and Bill O'Reilly and get a picture and get an autograph book. Some number of those people would have paid $1,500 to be at the front of the line and get a personally autographed book and have 5 minutes to have a conversation. Some small number of people would have paid $5,000 to bypass the whole damn thing altogether and have dinner with the two guys, right? Some people, now whether those guys would want to do it, that's a whole other, but it's there to be had if a business wants to do it. And most businesses don't layer on, layer on, layer on, and layer on. And they don't extract all that high margin money from a few. And there is a lot of high margin money from a few. We'll take our break there. It's just shy of 10:15. We will start back at 10:29. Please be on time.
I need somebody help, not just anybody help. You know I need someone help. When I was younger, so much younger than today,